All right, welcome back to the MXP San Francisco Modern 20K headliner. Jerry, we are in the finals of this tournament, and what a tournament it has been. We're going to take a quick look at the bracket here, see what the top 8 standings look like, take a bit of a recap of how we got here. Here it is for you. Our finalists. We've got Christopher on the Rakdos scam list. We've got Jennifer on the Golgari Yawgmoth list. And on the way up here, I mean, we watched Scott's Azorius Mill deck go so far. He played so expertly, got to the top seed of top 8, got beat out by our finalist Christopher. We've seen Hammer make it into top 8. We saw this breach list from Dan get in here, get beaten out 2-1 by Jennifer in the top 8. Our Titan list getting beat out by Gorios, which was also beaten by Jennifer. It has been quite a showing.
Yeah, I mean, especially from Jennifer's side of things. I mean, granted, we've seen certainly more of her matches than we have of Christopher's up to this point, but it does not seem to matter what sort of opponent, what sort of deck or strategy she's playing against. She finds a way.
Yeah, and here it is. Play draw decided by seed. So Jennifer, our second seed, is taking the play. Has Young Wolf turn 1. And we've been talking about these 1-drops all weekend long. The crabs fell to the wayside. The grazers destroyed. The what's the other one? We had another
Ragavan's there.
Ragavan's still in here. Ragavan, Young Wolf, fighting it out. Martyr, no longer a thing. These are our 1-drops. These are our special. Oh, turn 2. Soul Cauldron from Jennifer. Very strong against these scam decks.
Very strong, although I would imagine that if Christopher had that scam stuff going on, he would have gone for it on turn 1, but could be one of those situations where he was just missing one of the pieces and
Hmm.
was hoping the surveil land would help carry him the rest of the way there, and now no longer has that option, so is forced to play a much more fair game this time.
Absolutely. Young Wolf into Cauldron. Pretty great start for Yogg. We've got Christopher taking a Surveil, looking at his hand. Thinking hard about this one. It is an important match. Going to bin a Swamp.
An important match and a tough one as well. I mean, the Rakdos deck does have these sort of free wins with the scam stuff, but they are mostly just a grindy mid-range deck, and that is exactly what Yogg is pretty good at fighting through.
Right. And Christopher casting a Thoughtseize on Jennifer here. We see she has 3 lands and a Yawgmoth, which of course the Yawgmoth is going to be forced to be discarded, but that does mean it can go into the Cauldron.
At any point, it can happen, but Jennifer still needs some other creatures to maybe take advantage of that at some point. So you see her activating the cauldron and not even going for the Yogg stuff quite yet. Just like, yeah, we'll save that for later, just in case.
Yep. And Surveil land for Jennifer. We see a Bowmasters on the top of the deck.
Well, I did say she needed more creatures to take advantage of that Yogg, and there's basically nothing better than a raise the alarm.
And Christopher going to fetch into another Surveil land here, get another Surveil trigger. So gonna leave it on top, play a fetch land, get another land out of his deck.
Interesting to see him keep a card on top, considering the situation. Opponent has a creature in play that's pretty tough to kill. Agatha's Soul Cauldron, just ready to turn basically everything into Yawgmoth at any point. Like, what is a card in that scenario that you're super happy to see?
Right, and you know about Boseiju. So here's Fable of the Mirror Breaker for Christopher, going to make a Goblin Shaman token. And on instep, Jennifer is going to play Orcish Bowmasters,
Love this.
King the Goblin Shaman, activate Soul Cauldron, put Yogg under it. Now she has 2 Yoggs, sacrifice one of the Orc Army token to put the -1/-1 on the Goblin Shaman, and draw the Bowmasters she left on top.
Just kind of popping off from Jennifer, and you gotta imagine your opponent taps out for Fable, and that was the sequence that you're capable of doing. It's like that's the best possible for her, probably.
Yeah, absolutely popping off. So we're going to see 3 damage come through on this attack. It's like we're going to be shocking in a land. Then we will besage you down the Fable.
Doesn't feel great, but I imagine Jennifer likes her position quite a bit and just doesn't want Christopher being able to filter through some cards.
Yep. Definitely reasonable play. And we're gonna go back to Christopher now.
For now, with access to 4 mana, 3 cards in hand, could start playing some of the more powerful cards that he has in his main deck, like Shieldred.
Mhm.
But still one of those things where I don't know if that's even going to be enough, because Jennifer just has a ton of options, ton of different ways to accumulate value.
Another Fable, which I fear will be answered in a nearly identical manner. Cast a Bowmasters, ping the Shaman, sack the Orc Army token to the Yawgmoth ability, kill the Shaman.
So good. All the pieces work so well together.
They do. I think there's an Eldritch Evolution in Jennifer's hand. I believe that is a Pendlehaven.
Christopher already down to 10 life after some Bowmasters and Young Wolf beats and a couple fetch lands.
Yep, and Jennifer going to swing, I think, for 5 there, and then play a Blood Artist. Is this lethal? I mean, not quite. Gotta be getting close, though.
Certainly close. Another thing that Jennifer could have done was Eldritch Evolution away of Bowmasters to get Honest Rutstein and bring back the Bowmasters too. Like, I don't know if that's necessary or even close to the correct play or anything, but kind of cool.
Hmm, certainly possible. We're gonna see a Bowmaster from Chris targeting the Blood Artist. Now, of course, there are many Yogg triggers that can happen here. So it looks like she is sacking the Young Wolf in response. Undying trigger on the stack, Blood Artist trigger on the stack. She can sack a Bowmasters, put it in the Cauldron, beef up the Blood Artist. Okay, so putting a -1/-1 trigger on the Bowmasters. In response, Christopher casting a Not Dead After All on it. Looks like that is resolving. Blood Artist trigger seems to be resolving. Taking Christopher down to 4.
Christopher's doing his best to fight through this.
Right, but once that Bowmasters goes to the yard, she can eat it with the Cauldron. If
Yep, which
she
was great because the graveyard was otherwise out of creatures at this point.
So now she will eat it with the Cauldron. Possibly. Seems to still be thinking. Still have triggers on the stack. Definitely complicated, not something you wanna
Yeah, now now we're just building the stack as a visual representation.
Right.
Got to make sure that you work through this all cleanly. Definitely like trying to be clear and concise and make sure that the game state is accurate and everything. But I also think that this is going to end with Jennifer on tapping and winning the game. So
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got the Orc army. We are eating the Bowmasters before it can come back, putting a +1 counter on the Blood Artist. Christopher down to 3. Blood Artist not dying.
what a, a series of interactions. And
And
Dothy
that's gonna be game.
Voidwalker, Dothy Voidwalker, a little too late.
Little too late. And congratulations to Jennifer taking down game 1 of the finals here with just another very impressive display of her mastery of the Yawgmoth deck.
She's just winning games in different ways every single time.
Yeah, it's very impressive. She clearly has played a lot with this deck, has a lot of reps on it, knows what she's doing. Looks like players are making sideboard decisions right now, which if we're looking at these lists, Jerry, what do you think Christopher can do to make game 2 go a little better for him?
Uh, Christopher has done the thing that you can do with Scam where you try to hedge for a wide variety of matchups. His sideboard has 2 Kolaghan's commands, 2 Legion's Ends, and then a slew of different one-ofs, including 1 copy of Cursed Totem. So not hyper focusing too much on any individual specific matchup, but giving him plenty of tools for the format at large. And I think that that's going to serve him pretty well here, where there are things like the Kolaghan's Command and Legion's End that I mentioned. Also things like Bone Crusher Giant, another Shieldred, maybe Liliana, Nile Spellbomb, Pithing Needle, Unlicensed Hearse, the Curse Totem. Like so many cards that could potentially come in. It's just a matter of how he actually wants to configure his deck in the post board games. I know, something like Ragavan is a pretty easy card to cut, especially if you're on the draw. I know that he's on the play this game, but in general, that card doesn't line up too well against the Young Wolf Orcish Bowmasters deck, so that can get cut. Blood Moon, pretty hit or miss. Things like Molten Collapse, Angrath's Rampage, the expensive, like more clunky removal spells are fine, but not great. It just really depends on how Christopher wants to set up his deck because he has all the options.
Yeah, he's definitely got a lot of tools in the chest here that he can dip into. Taking a look at Jennifer's list here, anything stand out to you that you think she's going to want to bring in?
Fatal Push, pretty clean answer to Dothy Voidwalker. Uh, stuff like Endurance, Fulminator Mage, they're okay. It
Sure.
just depends on how she wants to be fighting the matchup, I think, how she expects it to play out. I don't know if you're supposed to play like a pick your poison or two, maybe. Like things like Curse Totem, Pithing Needle could very easily be coming in out of the sideboard. Maybe you're scared of Blood Moon to some degree. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely possible. Very interested to see how these players end up boarding, how they navigate this game too. Taking a look at opening hands here, pretty decent ones. It's like Christopher is going to send it back, and looks like Jennifer might be keeping. Yep.
Yeah, generally from the scam side, all I'm really looking to try and do against Yawgmoth is contain them in the short term, make sure that they can't get out of control, present a massive board presence, start fighting off like big Court of Callings, or have a full board on the turn when they finally put Yawgmoth onto the battlefield, because that's just sort of inevitable. Like that is going to happen at some point. And in the meantime, you just try and establish a clock. That is the best you can do. But I don't think that you're ever really in a position to where you can grind them down to nothing because of things like Grist and Soul Cauldron, Bowmasters, Yawgmoth. Like the Yawgmoth deck will be able to rebuild.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something the Yawgmoth deck is very good at, and something we've seen Jennifer do multiple times. I mean, we saw that game where the Grief Ephemerate was just tearing her hand to pieces, and still she was able to just get every single card into play that she could and crawl back and win.
And there was a game yesterday where Temporary Lockdown took out like 6 of her permanents.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, really proving the resilience of the deck and her skills as a player as Christopher is looking at a new hand here, making his decision on if it's a keep or a mull. What are your thoughts?
Fatal Push, Dothi Voidwalker, Grief, Terminate, 3 lands. It is a fine combination of cards, but when you think of it in context of the actual matchup that's sitting in front of you, like how good is this actually? Like you have Dothi on turn 2, which is great. It's not something that you can necessarily bank on because the Yawgmoth deck does have a decent amount of grists and way to put it into play. Also, maybe some things out of the sideboard, like the Fatal Pushes we mentioned. And then do you want to hold on to the grief in the hopes that you draw a scam effect and your opponent doesn't have like a Soul Cauldron already in play by the time that you find it? Just like the spot removal in general is a little bit better once Dothi Voidwalker's on the battlefield, because you do get to just deal with a young wolf permanently. But trying to fight through a young wolf with Fatal Pushes alone is not really going to do it. So I I understand looking at it like this is lands and spells. In theory, I'm supposed to keep, but Christopher's got to be thinking like, can I do better on 5?
Hmm. I feel like Rakdos Scam is a deck that has some really strong fives.
It does, absolutely. I mean, I would be much happier with anything that grief scammed on turn 1 and then had any sort of follow up. If it's, like a Dothi or a Bowmaster is awesome. If you have to wait until Fable the Mirror Breaker or something, that's fine too. I would much
Sure.
rather prefer to have something like that compared to what he's looking at now, which is just a lot of kind of like slow medium interaction, which is the stuff that Jennifer's deck thrives on powering through.
Yeah, and we talk a lot about the sort of nuts draws that Rakdos Scam can have, but Yogg is also capable of some pretty crazy opening hands. You know, you can go turn 1 Mana Dork, turn 2 Grist. That is really hard to deal with. You know, you can just turbo out creatures, get to Yawgmoth extremely quickly. You gotta be a little afraid of what Jennifer could be keeping with 7 cards.
Absolutely. It's a lot of resources. She's already started with a Delighted Halfling. Turn 2 could be something like Wall of Roots into Agatha's Soul Cauldron or like another creature, and then if she gets on tap, it's like you could just already be courting for 4.
Mhm. Yeah, we are seeing Christopher fetch for a Surveil land. Thinking long and hard about whether or not he wants to surveil away this card.
I think Christopher is in kind of a tight spot with his hand and needs to be very picky, very careful about the choices that he makes because any sort of misstep could certainly cost him.
Yeah, and getting a little bit of a look at Jennifer's hand here. I think I see a Court of Calling, might be an Honest Rusty. I think there's a Yogg in there. Some strong cards for sure. And the Delighted Halfling is going to get stomped. Really like that from Christopher. You really want to slow down this early mana, especially the creature mana from Yawgmoth.
Just try and contain what Jennifer is capable of doing as best you can. Ideally, there is a clock in there somewhere too, but doesn't really have that luxury right now.
Yeah, and looks like Gilded Goose is going to be the turn 2 play for Jennifer. It is a fun of one of in her deck.
Mana creature that does not die to Bowmasters.
We love them.
We tolerate them, is how I
I
would
love
put it.
them.
The goose does do a lot of things,
And it is
but
loose.
oddly generate mana is not like the best thing that it is capable of.
It's not terrific at it. I think that's why it is a one of in her deck and no more. And it's going to be a Dothy Voidwalker on turn 2 for Christopher. In response, Jennifer going to go ahead and fetch out a Surveil land.
Yep, definitely want to do this before the Dothy lands. Jennifer might want to put a creature in the graveyard here for a future Agatha's Soul Cauldron or something.
Yeah.
So it looks like the card that Christopher bottomed off of his mulligan was the third land.
Yeah, missing a land drop, turn 2, definitely tough here. Jennifer with no shortage of options. Going to shock in a land. And just going to get Yawgmoth on the board.
Yeah, kind of funny how most decks namesake, if the scam deck is able to steal it with Dothy Voidwalker, is pretty devastating, but Yawgmoth is not really that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that kind of needs to be built for it.
Yep. So Christopher could terminate it, but is that even the card that he would want to cast off of his Dothy Voidwalker? I don't think so.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a good time to get rid of it though before Jennifer is able to do too much with it.
I think so too. You're kind of priced in to killing Yogg as soon as he enters the battlefield because it can just get out of control. But
Yeah, and then
I definitely like Jennifer's approach here. Just play out the most expensive card in her hand,
mhm.
which leaves her with a bunch of cheap things, so she'll have more options next turn. And if the Yawgmoth dies, it dies. Your opponent can play it off the Dothy, but you don't really care.
Right, and she can't kill the Dothy, but she can shrink it, which is pretty relevant in a deck running as many Bowmasters as hers is. And we'll still get to draw a card. We see a Grist getting picked up there.
Yep, like that quite a bit. And you see the Gilded Goose adding mana for one turn, and it's like, you kind of did your job.
Yep, taking the Arboreal Grazer route.
Yeah, more or less.
Make your mana get out of there.
There were Yogg decks with Arboreal Grazer for a hot minute, and I kind of liked them, honestly.
That's wild.
And you don't have to twist my arm very hard to get me to play some bounce lands in my deck, just in the fair manner, no amulet involved.
Sure. It looks like Christopher is going to sack Dothy to get a Yawgmoth of his own.
Yeah, at this point, you have your 2/1 shadow creature that, as you mentioned, is now vulnerable to any Orcish Bowmasters. So do you want to just attack it, your 2 points in, have it die, or do you want to do the slight upgrade, turn it into a 2/4? If Christopher does have access to some Bowmasters of his own, then maybe gets to cosplay as the Yawgmoth deck for a few turns.
Yeah, and is going to get to draw a card off of this grief if he so chooses.
Yeah, I like that. It's kind of interesting because he could have also griefed uh beforehand and maybe sniped a better card for Dothy, but there's really not that much that you would really want to cast off the Dothy. I think I would rather just ensure that you get the Yogg, evoke the
Right,
grief, and then cycle it away.
right. And obviously, the grist is nice. The grist was also would not have been there, uh, as that was the card Jennifer drew off of activating Yogg before it was terminated.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, he could still terminate the Yogg first and force Jennifer to do that, and then at least just
Sure.
cast the grief before he sacks the Dothy, but I like this better.
Yeah. Taking a read of Honest Rusty. Reasonable.
Again, I don't think he's very honest. I think it's completely reasonable to just check twice, make sure there's no like hidden text on there or something.
Yep. Yeah, and you kind of have to take Rusty there if you are wanting to take any of the creatures or Grist.
Yeah, because Rusty will just get him back.
Just get them back. Make them cheaper. I'm starting to think this guy might not be as honest as he's claiming.
I've been saying it.
Christopher is going to sack the grief to Yogg before having to sack it to the evoke trigger. Get to draw a card.
Still no third land though.
Still no third land as Jennifer shocks in land number 4. Plays Scavenging Ooze.
Not a whole lot of hesitation on that shocking too. I wonder if that means that she definitely wanted to keep open 2 ooze activations, or is trying to, I was gonna say court for a Dryad Arbor maybe, but then I saw the card that she drew and it was a Bowmasters.
Yep.
So
Which means she still does have all those options open
yeah,
if for some reason she needs them.
but just that explains the no hesitation in my mind. Like she knew.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And also, yeah, it means that she would have had the answer for the Dothy had Christopher not sacrificed it to turn it into a Yawgmoth.
Yeah, so definitely good from Christopher there. You know, when you're in this sort of position where you're so behind on resources, I think getting every last bit that you can out of it is extremely important.
Yep, and he's doing the best he possibly can under the circumstances.
Yes, and the circumstances are tough.
You're playing against an opponent with Young Wolf in their deck.
That's a tough circumstance,
It is.
especially when Jennifer is going to be able to flash in this Bowmaster, uh, have a chord for 4 online. Yep, here it is.
But everything is face up. Christopher knows that if he wanted to, he could
Right.
sacrifice the Dothy to the Yawgmoth, take out one of Jennifer's creatures.
Yep. But lets her untap.
I do think it is more valuable to keep the Dothy around, especially since Jennifer could simply just draw a land and still be able to make the same play.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like we are going to see Grist come down.
I can make a token, still give Jennifer the ability to court for 2, or yeah, just do this. Minus on the Grist.
Attempt to kill Yogg. And Christopher lets that happen.
Now you have a Grist on 1, facing down a Shadow Dothy Voidwalker, so does Jennifer care at all about protecting this Grist, or has it done its job?
So Cord for 1 is online. It looks like just eating some creatures out of the yard to grow the ooze a little before combat.
Definitely like that. Get your points in where you can get them. And yeah, she's just saying that Grist has done its job. Attack away. That's fine. Maybe now we're in a racing situation.
All right, so we've got Thoughtseize, Not Dead After All, Fable, and I think that's an Angrath's Rampage.
Yep. Could potentially do some shenanigans with Dothy and Not Dead After All, but Jennifer wisely did not go all in on the Scavenging Ooze, still kept one activation open to stop any sort of thing like that from happening.
Mm-hmm. Yep, very disciplined play.
Gotta be frustrating if you're in Christopher's seat where like you have these tools that could maybe allow you to get out of it, but your opponent just gives you no opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, going to go ahead and attack the Grist down. We'll go under the Dothy. Then there's going to be a Thoughtseize to get rid of the cord. I like that a lot. Life totals are getting low, though.
I think Christopher might be down to 10, possibly, but Jennifer's hellbent now, but has 5 power in play.
Mm-hmm. Yep, able to attack for 5. Take Christopher down to 6. And say go.
The most fascinating thing about watching the Yawgmoth deck is just how the game plan seems to shift like twice per turn cycle, depending on what's going on, you know?
Yeah, well, you have so much access to so many tools. It feels like you are able to always, adapt your plan to whatever the current scenario is.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that Jennifer has navigated these situations very, very well.
Absolutely, and it has put her in a very favorable position here.
Ahead on life, ahead on board, ahead on mana. Still a lot of cards that she could draw that are just going to be very difficult to beat. Say she draws like another Grist, another Yawgmoth, anything like that.
Right? And
But
is
in the
presenting
meantime,
lethal.
yeah. But in the meantime, it's like, yeah, do I even need that? Looks like
We
Christopher's
are
still stuck on 2.
casting a Pithing Needle. Looks like possibly naming the ooze. Jennifer getting in some value in response. This could open up casting Not Dead After All on the Dothy.
That's pretty strong.
Right? Activate Dothy. Going to come back into play. With the Wicked Roll token on it.
This enables Christopher to maybe take Jennifer's Grist
Mm-hmm.
and then kill the Scavenging Ooze if he wants to. Then he's only facing down an Orcish Bowmasters and, maybe whatever else Jennifer has available to her.
Definitely an option here.
Christopher doing his absolute best, just stuck on 2 lands this entire game.
Yeah, really tough spot. He's making very good use of the 2 lands that he does have. Especially, you've been playing Magic all day, all weekend, fighting for your life to get here in the finals, on coverage. The pressure is real.
Pressure's real, and doesn't seem like the games are getting any easier for him either. Every game is just so much of a slog.
Yep. Looks like Uptick Grist might be what he is going for. It's like deciding. So Uptick Grist, he can get a insect, which can theoretically block the ooze if the insect lives.
Yeah, it's interesting because Christopher's at 6. He is facing lethal, but what is his best way to actually win the game? Not necessarily just live through the turn. The easiest way to live through the turn, sacrifice the Dothy, sure. But
Mhm.
is that going to get him that much closer to actually winning the game? Or is this line, making an insect, hoping that it survives, you get a jump block, does that give him more equity in the game? I think it does.
And
So
Jennifer draws a land to put a second one in her hand. Looks like the ooze is going at Christopher, and the bowmaster is going at Grist. Of course, he must block the ooze. It is 6 power.
unless he wants to go home.
Unless he's ready for dinner.
Yeah.
Yep. Grist will go back down to 3 loyalty. The insect will die. Jennifer will play her land and pass.
Did Christopher find a third land?
Looks like yes.
It's like, yes, looks like a swamp.
Could be very huge. We know that he still has a Fable in hand.
And Angrass Rampage is the other card. Also still has that Dothy Voidwalker, which could be a lot of different things, but probably just a Yawgmoth. So it could do something like turn the Voidwalker into a Yawgmoth, make an insect with Grist, sacrifice the insect to the Yawg to kill the Bowmasters, and then rampage down the Scavenging Ooze, just clear the board up that way.
Yeah, definitely a line. I mean, you do. Well, no, that wouldn't work right because you would still get the trigger off the Bowmaster
Oh,
for the
yeah.
Yogg draw. So
Yeah.
Jennifer would end up making a token, and she could just sacrifice that.
Silly Yogg, giving you too much.
Even when he's on the other side of the board, he gives.
Yeah.
But, you know, playing Fable, getting another body down. Not nothing.
Yeah, it's not bad. Like you have the 2/2 that checks the Bowmasters in combat, can make
Mhm.
another insect with Grist. Even if the insect does die, you could still potentially jump block the ooze with the goblin token. And then you don't necessarily have to cash in the Dothy this turn. You could simply attack for 4.
Mhm. Looking at Christopher's sideboard, I was just praying there was an insect in there. I just wanted the dream to be alive. It is not alive. The dream is dead. He will get no double grist triggers.
You wanted the one time that it happened to be from someone who didn't even start with Grist in their deck.
That would have been so sick.
Max Greed. Well, turn too late, but it looks like Jennifer picked up a copy of Fatal Push.
Yeah. Christopher gonna be very happy to have the bodies, but also, you know, if she does cast Fatal Push on anyone but the Dothy, then he does go into the Dothy. She's gonna cast it on the Goblin Shaman. And I think probably gonna make a similar attack to what she did last time.
Yep. I guess
Actually, this might have been all face.
the Bowmasters went upstairs.
Yep. You know, the last
Christopher.
hand in Jennifer's or the last card in Jennifer's hand is a land.
Yeah, when Christopher got to untap, he sat up.
Mhm.
He's like, okay, I think I'm doing all right now. Now that this Dothy has a fatal push, and he can certainly clean up the board any number of ways this turn. Gets to filter through some stuff too.
It's like choosing not to use the Fable ability. We don't know what his second card is, right? We know about the Rampage.
Yeah, the Rampage was there last turn, so the unknown card is whatever he drew this turn.
Sure. It's like we are going to cast the Giant. Take down Grist, sacrifice the Giant, get rid of the ooze once and for all. Swing in with the Dothy, get your damage in.
Okay, so it
Take
doesn't
Jennifer down to 10.
doesn't quite clean up the battlefield. Jennifer still has the Bowmasters, but Christopher's sitting at a pretty healthy 5 life. Not super scared of that.
Oh, and drawing a Chord of Calling. Jennifer has drawn basically any creature she wants.
This one also kind of feels a turn too late, though. Like, what is the best option to get here?
Yeah, it's definitely tricky.
She can get the deck's namesake, but there's not a whole lot going on.
No,
Plus
not too much to
Christopher,
do there.
plus Christopher has Grist on 2, still has the Dothy.
She can get a Grist of her own.
And do what? Sack the Bowmasters to kill the Dothy?
I guess. I think just holding it up, seeing what Christopher's gonna do. She's not under extreme pressure at the moment.
Now, there's certainly value in waiting. It's just tricky if she decides to not cast it this turn and then draws another spell and then won't be able to play both things. But you don't
Mhm.
necessarily know what you want to chord for until you have a little bit more information too. But
Yeah. Can also just get another Bowmasters at any point.
yeah, I think that might kind of be the plan where it's like, oh, well, maybe Christopher gets a little bit careless, leaves himself dead to chord for Bowmasters plus something else.
Right. He's gonna get in for some more damage, take Jennifer down to 6. I mean, he's done a great job of getting her life total down, spending so much of the game on 2 lands. Gonna uptick Grist, make a bug.
And there were plenty of opportunities to cash in the Dothy and play it a little bit safer, but like I said, you can't necessarily contain this Yawgmoth deck forever. You do have to put them on a clock, and Christopher is definitely trying his damnedest to do that.
Yep, and another Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Going to get a Goblin Shaman token.
So Christopher had 4 life, now with access to 3 blockers. Jennifer going into the tank, trying to figure out what, if anything, she wants to Court of Calling for here. One of the cards I noticed in her sideboard is a Reclamation Sage that, up until that second Fable hit the battlefield, might have been one of the stronger targets, actually.
Yeah, Reclamation Sage. Man, it's tough.
Christopher had to make the decision a few turns ago where he could have played it safe to make sure he did not die in that 1 turn window, or if he should do the thing that gives him the best chance of winning the game total. And he chose that kind of risky line that paid off. And now I think Jennifer's in a similar situation.
She's considering maybe grabbing a Grist here. Looks like has maybe pulled out a Haywire Might as well. Bowmasters.
Certainly plenty of options, but which one is the best? I'm not sure.
Honestly, with Yogg, sometimes your options are so plentiful that you're like, I'm just gonna chord for as much as I can and take a look.
Yeah. Yeah, thankfully Court is X or less.
Yes. I think that is the Rex Sage, which is gonna kill the Kiki Jiki.
I think that's a reasonable thing to do to kind of stem the bleeding. I don't know if there was a better option potentially to make it a little bit more likely that Jennifer is able to like win the game if she top decks something good here. But maybe there just wasn't a good enough option for that.
Yeah, and I mean, she's not dead necessarily if she just leaves things as they are. Is going to go ahead and attack Christopher. Going to trade off the insect. And then the card she drew is Fatal Push, which is going to take care of Dothy.
Take one from the Wicked roll.
One from the Wicked roll down to 5.
So both life totals pretty low. Christopher definitely ahead on Battlefield. Does not have the ability really to filter with the Fable in the face of the Bowmasters, but I think that's okay given his situation.
Yeah.
Still has that Angrath's Rampage chilling too, and now has full information as Jennifer is hellbent.
Yeah, I mean, that's a scary thing about Hellbent Yogg is anything could pop up off the top, and so many of their cards are redundant. But is gonna get to attack in with the Goblin Shaman, make a treasure, can uptick the Grist, get close to 5, which will certainly be lethal by the time we get there. Take Jennifer down to 3 life.
Is there anything that the Yawgmoth deck can do starting with basically 0 base? Generally, their cards are the most threatening when they have other stuff going on, sacrificial fodder or whatever.
Mhm.
Stuff when you just have 7 lands and no board.
Yep, so going to attack in with just the Goblin Shaman, it looks like?
I
Or
think,
wait, it looks like just that.
yeah, I think he's rewinding to end step and it's like, oh wait,
Yeah,
maybe I want to do something.
3 to 4. It's like he is deciding to fetch.
Can't turn down that surveil value.
Tie the game up at 3 to 3. He does have a lightning bolt, which if he kept in his deck would just be the end.
True. And certainly a card that I would keep in. Also have 2 attackers and Jennifer only has 1 blocker, so something like a Shieldred would probably do it too.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, certainly has outs to close this up.
The Young Wolf, while mighty, it might not be enough to save Jennifer here.
Yeah. Also, any kill spell would do it, because now you can sack the Kiki Jiki to Grist, kill Young Wolf, kill spell Young Wolf a second time, get in for 3.
True. Attacking with both. Having a Kolagon's command would do it too. So many things are lethal here.
Yep. Trading off with the insect. Coming back as a 2/2, taking 2 damage down to 1 life. We're gonna get rid of the Young Wolf for good and play a Shieldred, and that's gotta be game.
Trigger on the stack. Yeah.
Bowmaster herself. All right.
Incredible game.
Incredible game. Christopher fighting for his life with 2 lands. I mean, like you said, took the risky line, but the line that could lead to a victory and was rewarded.
Was definitely rewarded. I mean, that reward was very delayed. It did not come until like 7 turns later, but the keeping the Dothy around got in something like 12 damage, I think,
Mhm.
which allowed him to close that game out.
Yeah, intense game. Very intense game, but he earned himself a game 3.
Absolutely.
Now
Was
game
was
3,
certainly
Jennifer's gonna be back on the play, which is definitely very good,
true.
for her here. But as we said earlier, the Rakdos scam list can just kinda steal games, and if this game 3, Christopher gets, the whole scam package with the follow-up, everything he needs, that could be enough on its own.
It could be, and I don't know, Christopher has had to play some really hard games from what we have watched and none of them were the turn 1 scam stuff. We've seen him fetch Surveil on turn 1. Like, he hasn't even had a turn 1 Ragavan, like a runaway game with that or anything. All of his games
No.
have been super tough.
Yeah, very grindy, very every single decision matters a whole lot. Yeah, very interested to see how this final game goes of our final match of the 20K Modern Tournament. We have seen some really incredible gameplay today, Jerry.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised. Not that I would expect like the people to be bad or anything, but these are a lot of the players that we've been watching. Like, some I'm familiar with, but a lot of them I'm not, and the level of gameplay has been phenomenal.
Yeah, it's been extremely good, extremely tight, just very, very impressive. So much fun to watch, such a joy to commentate. Excited to see how it ends up.
I feel like these are some folks who have played Modern before, maybe once or twice.
You don't think this is their first time?
I mean, if it is, I'm even more impressed.
Yeah, me too. That'd be amazing.
You were talking about how, Jennifer clearly knows her deck, has played it a bunch, whatever, and it's like, what if she was just handed it this weekend,
Just like, oh yeah, 0 reps Yogg. I just get it. I just understand it.
I, I am one with the young wolf.
Wow, it's just like me for real.
Yep. Except she's in the finals of the 20K and we are commentating.
All right, there are some important distinctions, but
There's small distinctions.
yeah, small distinctions. But love for Young Wolf, not a distinction to be made.
Nope. Same team.
Same team, same hat. Hoping we see it this game. Hope we just see turn 1, Young Wolf. Let's go.
I don't even think, like, I would want to play Young Wolf on turn 1. Not that I want to hold it for value or whatever, but it's like, I want a delighted halfling. I want
Yeah,
to
I mean,
accelerate
Delighted
some
Halfling's
mana.
definitely what you want turn 1, but Young Wolf's the mascot, you know?
It is the mascot.
You need your flag bearer.
Young Wolf's been doing it. Been doing a great job.
Doing a very great job.
Christopher enjoying those insect tokens so much. He's trying to steal Jennifer's.
Yeah, yeah. Hoping to make some more of this game, I'm sure. Players presenting decks, shuffling up, getting ready to get our first look at these opening hands.
One game left for all the marbles.
For every single marble in the joint.
Looking at Christopher's path through the tournament, and like our top 8 is super diverse. The matches that we've gotten to watch and cover over the course of the tournament have all been super diverse too. And yeah, he has just had to play against basically everything. Like
Yeah,
Enya,
and
the
players
Rakdos
that
deck
we've
too.
seen play extremely well too, like he's been playing against titans,
Literally and figuratively.
literally and figuratively. All right, so we're looking at some opening hands. We've got Dothies, we've got Fatal Pushes, Bowmasters, we got Endurance, Delighted Halfling. Both
Pretty,
good hands, nothing crazy.
yeah, pretty. I was gonna say pretty solid on both sides, but nothing spectacular. But in terms of back and forth interactive game, this is kind of what we're looking at, assuming both players keep these hands.
Yeah, now that Fatal Push from Chris definitely gonna line up nicely against the Delighted Halfling from Jennifer. That Fatal Push from Jennifer gonna line up nicely against the Dothy Voidwalker from Chris. But of course, Chris has the redundancy of 2 Dothy Voidwalkers.
Also has the only Orcish Bowmasters out of the two of them.
Mhm. And we are going to see the push on the halfling. That is a wall of roots for turn. Jennifer going to
Oh.
surveil, see a young wolf on top, leave it on top, put respect on the name.
I would have been that for sure.
That's the difference between you and a Yogg player who's in the
Yeah.
finals of the 20K.
No, I'm just thinking about what I would do in Jennifer's situation. I'm like, oh yeah, been that young wolf, and she just kind of snapped off. Yeah, keep it. I was like, oh, I'm probably doing something wrong.
You're gonna get to go Wall of Roots, Young Wolf. Pretty nice. That's like 3 chord bodies, essentially.
I'm no mathematician, but
Right, there's Dothy. There's our boy. This is a rather unfortunate time where the third land is a surveil land. Gonna go ahead and push the Dothy. Play the surveil land. Chord of Calling. Never
notably
unhappy
number
to see that.
2.
Mhm. Young Wolf on the board for Jennifer.
And I believe that's game. Young wolf is hit the battlefield.
It's over. Pack it up.
Pack it up. We're done. Lights out.
Young Wolf, you don't even got any blockers?
Shadow that doesn't block.
Doesn't block Young Wolf, doesn't block most things. And it's gonna be another surveil land. Passing over to Jennifer. Got Wall of Roots, Endurance, 2 Chord of Callings.
So Jennifer can play Wall of Roots, and if she passes, she has access to Chord for 1,
Mm-hmm.
which we all know what that means.
But Young Wolf's just gonna get in for the Young Wolf beats. Technically, Chord for 0 is online. Don't think we're gonna see that, but we certainly could.
Good. That could lead into Chord for 4 if Christopher doesn't like attack Jennifer's hand or anything.
It's true. And there's Christopher attacking Jennifer's hand.
Weird. I am shocked. Again, we see the Dothy Voidwalker plus discard spell combination not looking super powerful against the Yawgmoth deck. Christopher could either accord for 0 or play an endurance. Endurance, respectable, but maybe
Respectable,
not what you would
probably
expect.
not what you're wanting, yeah.
Yeah. This combination of cards often leads to concessions from opponents.
So if Jennifer draws a untapped land, she's got chord for 4 available. She doesn't. She still has chord for 3 available, which is quite powerful with a Young Wolf in play.
It does still lead to Grist. Dothy would eat the young wolf, unfortunately,
Sure.
which is unacceptable.
It's horrible. Endurance is online for Jennifer if she wants to play it. Young Wolf going to get exiled under the Dothy, which, I mean, now the game has swung drastically because now Christopher could have a Young Wolf.
Whatever he wants. It did take a combination of 2 different 2-drops that are worth like $50 and $15 or something to take care of 1 common young wolf.
Yeah, I mean, that's the power. That's why you don't ban Young Wolf on the Surveil.
I'm learning. I will say that keeping the young wolf looked pretty good.
So now Court for 2 is online on Jennifer's turn.
Could get her own Bowmasters, I suppose, but then that's kind of the last of her action.
Yeah, not really what you want to be doing with your chord most of the time. Another chord of calling looks like the draw for Jennifer.
Well, that kind of changes things.
That does fairly significantly change things.
Then core for two, you get Bowmasters, kill the opposing Bowmasters. That leads to larger chord next turn.
Mm-hmm.
Like that well enough.
Yep. And doing it now while Christopher is all tapped out means she doesn't have to worry about any undying effects, anything like that.
Yeah, which would be super bad for her because Christopher will
Mm-hmm.
get to keep his Bowmasters around. We'll get to whittle her board down a little bit, meaning that she won't be able to chord for Yogg or any of the bigger cards. So heads up play there.
Because right now, if there's no changes to Jennifer's hand or board, chord for 4 is online.
That could get Yawgmoth. Yawgmoth could take out the Dothy Voidwalker and draw some cards. And if all that plays out, that puts Jennifer super far ahead.
Mm-hmm. This is definitely a tight one.
Yeah, very back and forth so far. Jennifer trying to build up her battlefield position. Christopher doing the best he possibly can to keep her contained, while also trying to apply a little bit of pressure and close this game out.
Looks like it's going to be a Legion's End on the Bowmaster. Jennifer is going to reveal her hand. No more Bowies in there. Well, kind of. There's a Bowie in
Kind
there.
of. If
The Bowie
if
in
she
there if
wants
she
it to
wants it,
be, yeah.
but not for the purposes of Legion's End.
Thankfully.
Thankfully.
Christopher is down to one card left, I think, and is fetching an untapped land, so some 3-drop coming, most likely.
Mm-hmm. Gonna swing in for some damage here. Take Jennifer down to 13, cast Fable of the Mirror Breaker. That is certainly a good 3-drop.
Is a lot of cardboard.
It's like land for Jennifer, which
Not
does put Chord for 4 back online.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not bad as long as it's ETB untapped.
Yep.
Blooming Marsh, no thank you. Jennifer could even fetch a Dryad Arbor here.
Mm-hmm. Chooses not to. Gets the swamp. Is going to Chord for 4.
Swamp in the face of Blood Moon. Probably a good choice.
Gonna get Yogg on the board.
And is it time to kill this Dothy Voidwalker before Christopher gets a chance to untap and filter with the Fable and whatnot?
Looks like Jennifer thinks it is. As she takes a Yogg trigger, puts a -1/-1 on the Dothy, draws a card. Does it again. Is willing to lose the Wall of Roots for it. Gets rid of the Dothy. Goes down to 10 life. But has a good blocker for the Goblin Shaman. Looks like Grist and I think Young Wolf in hand. In addition to the Endurance.
Young Wolf, maybe best possible draw.
Young Wolf, a very good draw right now. If she can just untap with this Yawgmoth and play. But even if she can't, without the Dothy mucking things up, she has the mana to play Young Wolf and Grist, which is pretty good.
Yeah, that'll definitely buy a whole lot of time. And the Dothy being gone potentially opens up things like Agatha's Soul Cauldron too, a little further down the line. So I think Jennifer's in a pretty good spot where the board is kind of contained and has plenty of gas in hand.
Christopher pitches a Fable to Fable for the redraw and then passes.
Gotta imagine if he had anything, there would have been a little bit more fireworks that turn.
Makes you wonder if perhaps the redraw was just a land or something not too exciting. Gonna take a Yogg trigger, putting a -1 on the Goblin Shaman. Gonna fetch. There's a Wall of Roots in hand. So we can fetch, play Wall of Roots, still play Grist, make an insect, do the Yogg thing a couple times, kill the Goblin Shaman. And
Okay.
you're really starting to see the engine turning for the Yogg deck here.
Yeah, don't have to go infinite every game with Yawgmoth. You can simply just do things this way, whittle down your opponent's board, just one creature at a time, accumulate some value, win the game eventually.
Yep. Uptick. Grist gets the ooze. Not quite an insect, though it does kind of look like one.
You think she should get like half a token?
I think you should get half a token, half a
Like,
loyalty.
or like the next time that Jennifer hits an ooze?
Yeah, if you had 2 oozes in a game, you get a double trigger. Right, and then we're gonna Yogg away the insect, get rid of the Goblin Shaman, get in for 2 points of damage with Yogg. Assuming it does not get blocked. It is getting blocked. Christopher preserving his life total as best he can. Fable triggers flips.
I think that's fine. Jennifer also has that pretty well contained. Now with Grist outputting a bunch of things to
Grief.
feed Yogg.
It's going to be Fatal Push and Endurance for Jennifer's hand. Now, we've gone through 3 of Jennifer's Court of Callings, I believe. So, not a ton of ways to just get any creature she wants left. Unless she left in any Eldritch Evolutions.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Leaving,
she does have 2 copies of those. I don't know if those would stay in or not though, but
not sure either. Leaving the Fatal Push means both these creatures can get dealt with pretty easily. Here's
oh,
Honest Rusty to bring back the Scavenging Ooze. This is gonna do a lot for Jennifer. Only costs 1 to deploy, thanks to Rusty reducing the cost of the creatures. Grist is gonna uptick. Hit a Grist 1 time. It was a Bowmasters. That's fine.
telling you, that guy, not very honest.
Not very honest at all, it seems. Right? Sacking the insect, putting a -1/-1 on Grief.
So Jennifer just going to work on Christopher's battlefield here. Should be able to
Mhm.
clear things up pretty nicely.
Casting Fatal Push on the Reflection. and can simply leave up the mana for the ooze. Also isn't really under a lot of pressure to get rid of the grief.
No, not really. I mean, Christopher could jump block with it. I guess that would be the only thing if Jennifer is feeling like she has reason to close this game out. But at 6 life, with Grist still available in case Christopher draws like a Shieldred or something,
Hmm.
I think she's in no real rush.
Gets in for 4 points of damage with the Young Wolf and the Yogg. Gets her Delighted Halfling on board. Notably, Grist is at 5 loyalty.
Yeah, not sure how much that ultimate would be for. I see at least 3.
It looks like Christopher sees the writing on the walls, concedes to Jennifer, who is going to be our winner, our first place finisher of the MXP Modern 20K. Congratulations, Jennifer. How incredible to have got to see so many of these games where she just piloted Yogg so well, so expertly, and
Absolute mastery, honestly.
absolute mastery. And it shows. Here she is, winner of our event. Congratulations, huge accomplishment. Congrats to Christopher as well, making it to second place, getting into the finals here. Played extremely well.
Definitely. Yeah, Jennifer lost 1 match all weekend.
That is crazy. Yeah, I would say Yogg mastery indeed. All right, well, Jerry, it has been an absolute pleasure to be in the booth with you. Thank you for commentating this event for me or with me. We're gonna pass it back over to Honorog here in a second. Any parting thoughts?
This has been absolutely my pleasure. It has been so nice to be hanging out with everyone. Thanks everyone for watching. The games were awesome. The players were just phenomenal, and I like Modern quite a bit, so this was fun, especially with like MH3 on the horizon. Get to see these decks maybe one last time.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Congratulations once more to our winner, Jennifer. Absolutely outstanding gameplay. Back to you, Honorog.